So good morning everybody. Today we'll be learning about most easier topic in the CNS, that is NSAIDs. Hope all of you know about this NSAIDs. Yes? Paracetamol. Have you heard of it? Yes. Paracetamol is the most commonly used drug for fever. Okay, that means the drug is acting as an antipyretic agent. Next, diclofenac. Have you heard of it? Yes, diclofenac we use it for pain. Okay, so it is again one more NSAIDs. So now we have other NSAIDs like such as ibuprofen, which is most commonly used in children's. We have mefenamic acid, meftal-spas. Have you heard of this drug? Meftal-spas, mefenamic acid, commonly used in menstrual pains. And nowadays we have drugs which are used more commonly in osteoarthritis patients, such as selective COX-2 inhibitors such as celecoxib, rofecoxib, valdecoxib, all these things. Okay, so today we will be learning about this newer drugs and older drugs which were used. So coming to the classification, okay, we have salicylic acid derivatives, aspirin. Have you heard of aspirin? Yes. Sodium salicylate, diflunisal. We have para-amino phenol derivatives such as phenylbutazone, okay, azapropazole. Indole acetic acid derivatives, indomethacin, commonly used in children, sulindac, etodolac, okay. Diclofenac, the newer version of this diclofenac is aceclofenac, ketorolac and tolmetin. Propionic acid derivatives such as ibuprofen, flurbiprofen, naproxen, ketoprofen and that is it. We have anthranilic acid derivatives, that as phenamates, mefenamic acid, enfenamic acid, okay. Oxycams, nowadays they are using piroxicam and meloxicam for allergic patients who are allergic to diclofenac. Okay, so selective COX-2 inhibitor, the newer drugs which are more costlier. Okay, celecoxib and rofecoxib, valdecoxib, etocoxib. These are more selective in terms of they are inhibiting only selective COX-2, that is cyclooxygenase 2. COX-2 is having better effects because of this selectivity. What is that? We are ready now. Okay, so in the membranes we have phospholipids. This is a small topic on physiology, how this COX-2 is good and COX-1 inhibition is bad. Okay, here you are seeing the effect of this COX-2 inhibition, COX-1 inhibition. What is this COX? COX is an enzyme, okay, enzyme which converts this membrane arachidonic acid into different types of prostaglandins. Okay, so this is a normal mechanism which is going on. Okay, this arachidonic acid, which is a membrane phospholipid in the body, it is converted into prostaglandins which are associated with GI mucosal integrity, latent normal functioning and renal functioning, where the prostaglandin mediated salt and water excretion takes place. But when we have to decrease the pain associated with the body's myalgia, arthralgias, we are using these COX inhibitors. Okay, this big line you are seeing, the traditional NSAIDs, traditional non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs. What they used to do, they used to block both these things, COX-1 also, COX-2 also. But the pain reduction or the inflammation, fever, all these things needs only COX-2 inhibition. Okay, the prostaglandin involved in inflammation, the prostaglandin involved in pain, the prostaglandin involved in this fever, only this thing should be avoided, or this thing production should be decreased so that fever is decreased. But all these days we are using this traditional NSAIDs. Okay, these traditional NSAIDs, they inhibited this also, and the person who used this NSAIDs, what had happened? GI irritation. Okay, paracetamol, if it is taken before food, what would happen? The patient will have GI irritation, gastric irritation, vomiting sensation, all these things will be there. So that's why we have to use this NSAIDs after food. Okay, but nowadays we have selective COX-2 inhibitors, even though they are taken on without food or less GI irritation patient also, they can tolerate this. Platelet function, yes, aspirin, what it does, aspirin by virtue of its COX-1 inhibition, it can inhibit the platelet aggregation. This can be beneficial when it is used under lower doses, okay, but if it is used at the doses where we are using for pain, there will be lot of side effects. Aspirin is a primary basic drug which was used for decreasing the pain initially at the quantity of 1 gram, 2 grams per day, like that. Okay, nowadays we are having a better drugs where we do not use them at such higher concentration. Okay. Little bit more about understanding this cyclooxygenase 1 and cyclooxygenase 2. Okay, they produce prostaglandins that mediate the homeostatic function. You saw in the previous slide what were those: gastric mucosa, kidney actions, and integrity of the vascular endothelium. Here, cyclooxygenase 2, it is not normally present in the body. Okay, so it is induced when there is pain, when there is inflammation, when there is infection. These are induced by cytokines. Coming to the mechanism of these NSAIDs, how does they produce their good effect, anti-inflammatory effect? For example, you have a fall, you have an injury. Okay, what will happen at that side? There will be redness, pain, all these things will be there. Okay, around the knee joint, if you fall, what will be there? There will be inflammation, pain, redness, all these things will be there. So this should be decreased. How this is possible with NSAIDs means due to the inhibition of the enzymes that produce prostaglandin H, that is COX-2. Okay, so cyclooxygenase or COX, which converts arachidonic acid into prostaglandins. By inhibiting them, thromboxane A2 and prostacyclins, we are avoiding the inflammatory process or bypassing the inflammatory process. Coming to the analgesic effect. Yes, analgesic effect is again due to the COX inhibition. The peripheral inhibition of the prostaglandin production may be due to the inhibition of the pain stimuli at the subcortical area. You need to remember that the paracetamol is not a traditional COX-1 or COX-2 inhibitor. It is a COX-3 inhibitor also. Okay. And this action is produced at the subcortical area or the CNS sites. NSAIDs prevent the potentiation action of the prostaglandins by inhibits the mediators. This bradykinin again is a byproduct of this arachidonic acid metabolism, which we saw initially. That table was there. No? This again, bradykinin is again the byproduct of this arachidonic acid breakdown. This is also prevented. Okay, antipyretic action. Antipyretic action of NSAID is believed to be related to prostaglandin, induction of the production of prostaglandins, interleukin and interleukin 6 in the hypothalamus. All these things can be blocked by the action of the paracetamol. Okay, so and once these are blocked, there is resetting in the thermoregulatory system. Okay, leading to vasodilation and heat loss. Coming to the pharmacokinetics, how this drugs is absorbed in the body, what are the various metabolic routes. Okay, that is ADME, what we are studying now. So paracetamol, usually we give paracetamol at interval of 6 hours. 6 hours means 4 times a day we can give this paracetamol. Okay, but the earlier salicylates like acetyl salicylate or the aspirin, they have shorter half-lives. Okay, maybe like 3 to 6 hours, and they need more and more administration, more frequency of administration, and their orally when they are given, they have good absorption and they are metabolized by hepatic metabolism. Okay, and they can be both intrahepatic circulation and renal excretion. Do you remember the term intrahepatic circulation? Intrahepatic circulation is a method where the drug which has entered the intestines, okay, from the intestine again reabsorbed back into the hepatic system by hepatic blood vessels, okay, again it can be recirculated back into the circulatory system. Intrahepatic circulation increases the bioavailability or the increases the duration of the action of the drugs. Just remember that things, okay. So after long term administration at high doses to treat hepatitis, they can cause toxic overdosage, okay. And the hepatic metabolization is by glucuronide conjugation. Do you remember conjugation steps where these are found? These are in phase 2 biotransformation. Do you remember phase 1, phase 2 biotransformation reactions? Was it told? Yes? Biotransformation, have you heard of it? Yes? Yes. I believe that you have read these things. Okay, there are the drugs which are having shorter half-lives, that is ibuprofen, diclofenac, indomethacin, where the frequency of administration may be like 3 times or more than that. We have the newer agents like naproxen, celecoxib, rofecoxib and piroxicam, where they have longer half-life and their administration may be once or twice daily. Coming to the first drug, aspirin. Okay, aspirin initially it was used to decrease the pain. Okay, now we have specific purpose for aspirin, that is anti-platelet action. Okay, it is used at the dose of 75 milligram or 150 milligram. The common trade name is ecosprin. Okay, this drug we are using as an antiplatelet drug to increase the longevity of the person. The person who is having heart disease will have heart. You know what is myocardial infarction? Yeah, have you heard of it? Yes, what is happening? The blood vessels supplying to the heart are blocked there. Okay, once the blood supply is lost, there will be heart attack. Okay, to prevent this phenomena, what we are using, we are preventing the blood from coagulating. Okay, so in order to prevent this blood coagulation at these vessels, we are using anti-hypolipidemic drugs, anti-platelet drugs, anticoagulants. Anti-platelet drugs are given for long-term prophylaxis in myocardial infarction. Okay, so there we come across this aspirin at low doses. They are given at 75 milligram, 150 milligram, ecosprin maximum of 300 milligram per day it is given. Okay, so aspirin may be taken with prostaglandin to reduce gastric damage. There are prostaglandins which inhibit the prostaglandin I2 is there, which is supportive to the GI mucosa. Okay, gastrointestinal mucosal protection is rendered with prostaglandin I2. So if we suspect gastric acidity, we can as well administer them with antacids at different time, or they can be administered along with prostaglandins. Okay, so decreased gastric irritation can be done with enteric coated tablets and time release preparation. Enteric coated means the drug will be coated on outer side so that they are released at a particular site. Okay, that is what we are meant by this term. Okay, the use of non-acetylated salicylates, again they can decrease the gastric acidity. So how this gastrointestinal side effect is there? This gastrointestinal side effect of aspirin is mainly due to the inhibition of prostaglandins, which are involved in GI mucosal protection, that is prostaglandin I2. Okay, so there is direct clinical effect on gastric cells and cytoprotective effect of this prostaglandins is inhibited. And once this prostaglandin lining or protectin cover is removed, this HCl or the gastric acid which is produced, it will directly act on the mucosa and mucosa will be damaged. Okay, coming to the next drug, acetaminophen or paracetamol. Okay, so you may get the question in the exam as acetaminophen. You need to remember it is other name for our paracetamol. So the plus point here is it does not displace the drugs from the plasma protein. The displacement process is not there, and gastric damage is not that much. Okay, not that much as aspirin. The damage is less, maybe because the dosage what we need to use here is very less. Okay, maybe 500 milligram 4 times daily, 3 times daily, like that. Compared to aspirin, the dose is less, so less chances of gastric irritation. It has little effect on platelet adhesion and aggregation. Okay, because this platelet adhesion aggregation, this is all due to the action on the COX-1 enzyme. Okay, but here our paracetamol is a COX-3 action, that is cyclooxygenase 3 inhibitor. So inflammatory, anti-inflammatory action is not that much with our paracetamol. Anti-inflammatory action, we are using the drugs such as diclofenac, ibuprofen, ketorolac, oxycodone. These are anti-inflammatory effect more of. Coming to the next drug, that is indomethacin. Okay, so all these drugs have specific antipyretic action, anti-inflammatory action, okay, and also analgesic action. But with all these effects also, specifically we are using some drugs for some purposes. For example, paracetamol for decreasing the fever, diclofenac for decreasing the joint pains, something like that. Okay, so indomethacin we are using it for a particular purpose in the children. Where we are, in which type of children we are using? To speed the closure of the patent ductus arteriosus in premature infants. Okay, so otherwise we are not involving. Patent ductus arteriosus, have you heard of it? Just remember, it's a connection between right heart and left heart. Okay, so right heart and left heart connection should be prevented after birth. Okay, and sometimes what happens, premature means the baby is not yet mature. At that case, what can happen? This right and left heart connections may be intact. What will happen? Mixing of good blood and unpurified blood can happen. Okay, this can be prevented with the help of this closure of this patent ductus arteriosus. Just remember these points. Okay, it inhibits the production of prostaglandins that prevent the closure of the ductus. Then treatment of ankylosing spondylitis, Reiter's syndrome, acute gouty arthritis. All these are inflammatory conditions where we can use this indomethacin. It is not recommended for simple analgesic or antipyretic because of severe side effects. Commonly it is used for patent ductus arteriosus. Coming to the next drug, that is piroxicam. Piroxicam again, it's a oxycam derivative of linoleic acid. They act by inhibition of the COX enzymes. Both COX-1 and COX-2 enzymes are inhibited by oxycams. Okay, the T half is plasma half-life. Okay, plasma half-life is 45 hours. That is good. Yes. Okay, for the patient who has multiple drugs for consumption, he may forget to consume in the morning or afternoon, or like that. Okay, once a daily dosage can be done with this long T half drugs like aspirin and indomethacin. Bleeding ulcerations are more likely. Okay, because of longer half-life, the more plasma bioavailability, they can go for more serious side effects. So nebumetone, again, it is compared to other NSAIDs, it is associated with less inhibition of the platelet function. So there is no action on the platelets. That is good if there is bleeding tendency in the patients. Okay, and incidence of gastric intestinal bleeding is also less. This is because of relative action on COX-2 rather than COX-1 action. Okay, so we need more of COX-2 action and less of COX-1 action. Because of COX-2 action, there is good effects. Because of COX-1 action, there are side effects. So side effects part is less here. Okay. Then we have flurbiprofen, which is used for topical use. Ophthalmic use, we are using this flurbiprofen. Coming to the next group of drugs, that is selective COX-2 inhibitors. So selective COX-2 inhibition means there is less chances of side effects. celecoxib, rofecoxib and valdecoxib. Okay, so these inhibit the COX-2. That means there is no associated side effect with platelets, no GI side effects. Okay, and what was the other side effect? Side effect associated with cardiac system or the renal system, where the prostaglandin mediated salt and water excretion was prevented with the help of this COX-1 inhibition. So all these side effects are less with COX-2 inhibition. Only thing which prevents us from prescribing these COX-2 inhibitors is they are relatively costlier. Okay. Inhibition of the COX-2 more than COX-1 have been developed for approved use. Okay. What will happen here? Inhibition of the COX-2 will reduce inflammatory response and pain, and does not inhibit the cytoprotective action of the prostaglandins in the stomach, which is largely mediated by COX-1 action. Here there are side effects associated with rofecoxib because of these rofecoxib and valdecoxib, they are directly toxic to the heart. Okay, we thought of having good effects with COX-2 inhibitors, but these COX-2 inhibitors also have some side effects. So the drug which commonly used are celecoxib. Okay, celecoxib, and now we have etocoxib. Okay, etocoxib and celecoxib we are commonly using now for rheumatoid arthritis, osteoarthritis, bone pains, dental pains, headache, ankylosing spondylitis. All these things we are using this celecoxib and etocoxib. Okay, and they do not have effect on platelet action. Okay, so we can be using them safely. So this is just a summarization. Okay, overall we use this salicylates and NSAIDs. Rheumatoid arthritis, general arthritis, osteoarthritis. Okay, we are using this 5 amino acid salicylates. We are using it for Crohn's disease. Have you heard of this Crohn's disease? It is a disease associated with inflammatory bowel disease, or commonly the patient will be having episodes of loose stools, episodes of constipation. Okay, it's a very difficult disease to treat, and NSAIDs are beneficial in these patients. Okay, the patient will be coming to you with loose stools for some days. After some time he will come with constipations. Okay, there is alternative episodes, and after thorough examination we will see there will be patches of ulcerations in the intestines also. This is a very difficult condition to treat, but our NSAIDs are beneficial in such patients. What adverse effects we can expect here? Yes, when we start with the NSAIDs, GI side effects are common. Okay, except for COX-2 inhibitors, all the other NSAIDs they can cause GI side effects due to PGI2 inhibition. Most common adverse effects with high-dose aspirin: nausea, vomiting, okay, dyspepsia. This diarrhea and constipation are rarer. Okay, epigastric pain is very common. Bleeding, ulceration, all these are common GI side effects associated with aspirin or other NSAIDs. So here is a diagram which is showing how there is problem associated with this NSAIDs, and here we can also understand the role of prostaglandins in various systems. Okay, so here we are inhibiting the conversion of arachidonic acid to prostaglandins. Okay, once this path is blocked, the other pathway is the synthesis of this leukotrienes. Okay, this leukotrienes again they can cause airway obstructions and airway resistance here. Okay, so we have the drugs such as leukotriene antagonists to treat the airway diseases, maybe asthma, COPD, chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, lower respiratory tract infection, bronchial asthma, bronchitis, bronchiectasis. All these conditions where there will be increased airway resistance, maybe due to the secretions, excess of secretions, constricted bronchioles, all these things. All these areas we are using the leukotriene antagonist. Okay. And here one more action of this prostaglandins is renal blood flow. Okay, renal blood flow is more, there is prostaglandin mediated salt and water excretion. If this salt and water excretion is not taking place, what can happen? After long time administration of NSAIDs, the patient will have lot of salt in the body, lot of water in the body. What can happen? Hypertension. Okay, the blood pressure will increase after long term administration of this NSAIDs. Okay, that is again NSAID induced nephrotoxicity, that can also cause problem. NSAID induced asthma can be there because of increased leukotriene production. Okay, so NSAIDs induced gastropathy, increased mucus production. If this is normally prostaglandins are causing decreased acid secretion, increased mucus. Okay, and if this NSAIDs are used, there will be decreased mucus production, increased acid, which will damage the wall. So drug interactions, what drugs should not be used along with this NSAIDs? Okay, antihypertensives, just now I told, okay, these NSAIDs, they are causing salt and water retention, but have antihypertensive drugs, they are increasing the salt and water excretion. Okay, one is acting against each other, their action will be nullified. Okay, phenytoin, with phenytoin there is plasma protein displacement. Okay, just plasma protein displacement from the plasma proteins can cause more and more action of this phenytoin, and phenytoin toxicity can be there. Anticoagulants, you just got to know that the aspirin at low doses, it can cause antiplatelet action. Okay, their action can also be affected with the plasma protein displacement also. Methotrexate, again anti-cancer drug, which can cause problems. Okay, coming to the summary of the NSAIDs drug interaction here. Anticoagulants, displacement, increased anticoagulant activity, that can be there. Lithium, do you remember lithium, where did we use? Mood? Yes? Okay, we use this lithium in manic depressive disorders, we can use, okay, all these conditions. NSAIDs, what they do, inhibit the renal epithelium, inhibit the renal elimination of the lithium, and again lithium is a drug with narrow therapeutic index. Okay, if the drug concentration is increased little, then also it can cause problems. Then coming to antihypertensives, NSAIDs may cause fluid retention and edema, and effect of antihypertension will be decreased. So COX-2, can they cause GI toxicity? Very less incidence. Okay, ulceration is less, risk of bleeding, perforation, everything is less. Effect on colonic polyp cancer, that is also less. Less tendency to cause side effects. There are other side effects associated with NSAIDs, that is hypersensitivity. Okay, hypersensitivity can occur to any group of drugs and also for the NSAIDs. Okay, uncommon with the use of aspirin, but others can cause rash, bronchospasm, rhinitis, edema, all these things can be there. Okay, in the incidence of intolerance is highest in patients with asthma, nasal polyps, all these people. Okay, because these people will have increased leukotrienes also. The side effects or the toxic effect will be there because of this leukotrienes. And aspirin is avoided in patients with asthma. Again, it can cause salipsy. Okay, aspirin can cause salipsism, tinnitus, hearing loss, vertigo. All this can occur with excess use of aspirin at high doses. In children, we are no longer using these drugs, but it was initially when used associated with hyperventilation, acidosis, all these things. Okay, coming to the summation of the good effects, that is, beneficial effects are analgesia, antipyresis, anti-inflammatory action, antithrombotic action, benefit in Crohn's disease, and prophylaxis in cases of heart attack. Okay, prophylaxis to prevent the further attacks of heart attack due to antiplatelet action. Those 2 points are there. Okay, analgesia prevent the pain from the nerve ending sensitization. Antiparesis, mainly we are using which drug? Paracetamol. Okay, analgesia we are using ibuprofen, diclofenac, oxycams, okay, oxycams which can be used for once daily. Okay, so anti-inflammatory action, more commonly again the drug is diclofenac. The newer drug which are used for this anti-inflammatory effect of joints is statiopeptidase. Now we have newer drugs such as diacetyl, glucosamine. Okay, these are not acting on these prostaglandins. Again, still they are having analgesic effects. Antithrombotic effect again by COX-1 inhibition, aspirin at low dose. Okay, closure of ductus arteriosus. Which drug we are using? Indomethacin.